I am officially starting a Rashee Rice support group for any of us that drafted Rashee Rice to be a league winner that he was on his way to being. But the harsh reality of fantasy football is usually the one with the most players standing at the last whistle is the one who wins in fantasy football. And that's what makes the waiver wire so important right now. And it's slim pickings this week, but there are really good options. So we got to go through the waiver wire guides to get before week 5. And make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to this channel to show your support, because I'm doing everything I can to get us past the Rashee Rice terror that we just experienced. Now, going down to our first tier of guys here, we need to check availability on these guys right here, because these guys should not be on waivers. Starting out with Chase Brown at number 1 here. He's 54.6% rostered, and it was funny, I actually got a couple Chase Brown questions earlier in the day on Sunday as I was going through the live stream. Some people were asking, should I drop Chase Brown for X player? Should I bench him this week? And it's like, I told a lot of people to bench him, and he obviously goes off, has a massive game in week 4 fantasy football, and does better than Zach Moss does, right? But the one thing I did say is do not drop Chase Brown right now. Number 1, this guy is the immediate handcuff to Zach Moss if anything were to happen. Number 2, he's on a great offense, obviously. So if Zach Moss were to go down and Chase Brown were to handle the carries and the workload in the backfield, he's on a great offense for it. And number 3, Chase Brown is not irrelevant as is. He's still not fantasy relevant enough most of the time for him to have a lot of opportunities, but this may be the week that it kicks off right here. Chase Brown, if you remember, actually had hype going into the year in fantasy football. A lot of us, including myself, said maybe this guy could be a league-winning running back if he actually gets the opportunities here. Now, obviously, up to this point, it's been pretty empty for him. That Chase Brown league winner talk was obviously drained in the first 3 weeks, but it may have been just refilled a little bit here in week 4, because what he did was no mistake. They were trying to get him the ball in this game. So with Chase Brown right here, he's 54.6% rostered on ESPN. This guy should not be on waivers. I don't care if you have Zach Moss or not. If you don't have Zach Moss, go claim him and wave him in front of the guy with Zach Moss's face. Say, look, I have the RB1 right now. What are you going to do about it? And use him as trade bait if you really don't want to hold on to him. Jonathan Brooks is the guy that you need to get if he's on waivers. Jonathan Brooks is the rookie running back for the Carolina Panthers. 2nd round draft pick for Carolina that obviously a lot of people coming into the season thought was going to be the running back 1. Now, obviously, he was going to miss the first 4 games as is. So usually what happens is people draft this guy, maybe don't have an IR spot, or maybe you're just 0-3, and then they start dropping him. So he went down to 65.6% rostered. So obviously, again, he's not going to be available everywhere, but Jonathan Brooks should be on rosters right now because he's amping up to return, potentially in week 5. But the one thing I will say is Chuba Hubbard definitely caused a conversation in Carolina, I believe, in the last 3 weeks of production he's had. He's been elite, so I'm not saying that Jonathan Brooks is going to be the starting running back. I actually think he's a good trade piece because this guy has been overvalued from the get-go in fantasy football. Mark my words on that. He will not live up to the draft capital that you had to pay to get Jonathan Brooks. I think he's a better trade piece than he is an asset on your fantasy team, unless you have a guy like Chuba Hubbard on your roster. Bucky Irving should not be on waivers. 51.7% rostered right now. Another week, he shares the backfield with Rachaad White, and he does just as well, actually. Well, the really difference, they actually did the exact same thing on the ground. They both had 10 carries for 49 yards, so they literally did the exact same thing. It's just that Bucky Irving had a rushing touchdown, and Rachaad White actually ended up having the receptions here. Bucky Irving is going to take over this backfield. This is not like a guy that's a handcuff. This is a guy on his way to taking over the backfield. That's the reality here with Bucky Irving. So I just think that this guy should not be on waivers at this point. If he's on your waiver wire, you need to claim him. And I don't even know if he's a trade piece. This guy's got rock solid value that's only ascending at this point in fantasy football. And then Jakobi Meyers should not be on waivers either. He's probably not on your waiver wire, 67.9% rostered. A lot of people know him. He's kind of a pretty consistently solid fantasy asset over the years. But with Devontae Adams, it's expected that he may miss a couple games, which puts Jakobi Meyers directly in the firing range of 10 targets per game. From Gardner Minshew, from Aiden O'Connell, it doesn't matter. Jakobi Meyers is going to be the wide receiver 1 for many weeks to come, and he should not be on waivers right now. Now, dropping down to the guys that you need to claim right now. wide receivers and quarterbacks, Wan'Dale Robinson, Xavier Legette, Josh Downs, and Justin Fields. Wan'Dale Robinson. This dude on Thursday night has 10 catches for about 70 yards. And this is the thing with Wan'Dale Robinson. If you're in a standard league, Wan'Dale Robinson is not going to be a guy to start. You may want to claim him just as is because he does have the target share and maybe he hits on a big play. But the reality is that Wan'Dale Robinson is a great pickup in a full PPR format. This guy is 27.1% rostered, and I gotta tell you, this is not a secret with Wan'Dale Robinson. He is not all of a sudden just averaging in week 4 a great amount of targets in this game. No, this guy is averaging targets per game on a regular basis that's high end because he has carved out a role in this offense. He's had this role carved out for weeks. And the good thing that separates Wan'Dale Robinson from other guys who sometimes see this amount of target share is this is not threatened. This role is not threatened by anybody. Wan'Dale's role is for him and for him alone. This guy gets tons of short level throws that are high percentage passes for Daniel Jones to complete. So with Wan'Dale Robinson, he actually opens up the field for somebody like a Malik Neighbors to go down the field because the defenses can clamp down on Wan'Dale all they want when he starts ripping them up for 7 catches. And then that leaves Malik Neighbors wide open. Now, obviously, Malik Neighbors probably more so does the opening up for Wan'Dale Robinson. But Wan'Dale Robinson at this point has carved out a role in this offense. This guy should not be on any waiver wires at this point, especially if you're in a full PPR and even a half PPR league. This guy is averaging basically 10 fantasy points per game. That's a great flex play, especially for someone like myself who just rostered Rashee Rice for the entire season in all likelihood. Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette, I was worried about him heading into this week, but the reality is, he's their second best receiver at this point. It's not Jonathan Mingo. Let's get that straight. I don't think anybody really understood that it was Jonathan Mingo, but people have to understand that Xavier Legette is definitely the second best option. Now, obviously, Deontay comes out and he has a good game. Xavier Legette has a good game as well for the Panthers against the Bengals here. And the other reality is that with Deontay Johnson, it's very similar to the Wan'Dale Robinson and the Malik Neighbors thing. With Xavier Legette, that guy is he's more limited than Malik Neighbors. Obviously, he's not the player, but that guy's a downfield threat and over the middle of the field threat. Deontay Johnson is the great route runner, getting sideline throws, getting some over the middle throws, getting some curl routes thrown to him so he can open up the field for these deep shots to Xavier Legette. So as long as Andy Dalton continues to start, which I have no reason to believe that it won't be Andy Dalton, Xavier Legette's going to have quality opportunities. He's 25% rostered on ESPN right now. You got to pick this guy up if you are in search of a big play on a weekly basis from a flex option. Josh Downs. Josh Downs has a great game. And the irony is I told a lot of people to sit him. I had no confidence in Josh Downs. Now, he's 8.8% rostered. Obviously, he has a good game. You can see the numbers on the screen. But what you have to remember here, if you did not watch this game, Anthony Richardson went down very early in this game. Basically, the second or third drive it was, and he did not return. So Joe Flacco, the league winner from last year, who also made Omari a league winner, Joe Flacco comes in, and he's delivering the ball at a much better pace than Anthony Richardson is. The truth is, he's actually a better thrower than Anthony Richardson. Now, here's the problem with that. Anthony Richardson report came out after the game. He's not expected to miss time, if any at all. So if anything, he may miss the next game, but in all likelihood, he'll probably be back within the next 2 games. So Anthony Richardson does not look like he's going to miss time, and you can bet that they're not going to start Joe Flacco when Anthony Richardson is ready. So that is one thing you have to keep into account here, because obviously a lot of Downs production came from Joe Flacco with those short distance routes right there. I just don't see Anthony Richardson being able to complete it as often to Josh Downs as Joe Flacco just did. So that's the one thing I'm afraid of with Josh Downs here, is that this is not sustainable because his quarterback just simply isn't very accurate at throwing the football. But 8.8% rostered, again, if you're in a full PPR league and you want to have a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson who's going to get consistent targets, Josh Downs is that guy because he will get consistent targets. I just don't know how much he's going to be able to capitalize on every single one of those again. Justin Fields, at this point, the quarterback position's a mess. Guys that you drafted are not doing well for you in fantasy. I'm out here even saying Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, and of course he's got the name value, when you draft Patrick Mahomes, you're expecting to be able to just cruise through the season with Patrick Mahomes as your starter. The reality is, Justin Fields is a better fantasy quarterback right now than Patrick Mahomes is, especially with the loss of Rashee Rice here. He's got no number one. So at this point, Justin Fields, coming off 2 straight great performances, and this one was even better, he shouldn't be on waivers. 33.9% rostered, and what we're starting to see with Justin Fields is he's starting to use his legs more. And this is not a coincidence. This will keep up. Mark my words. Because what's happening with the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, they're dropping like flies. Their starting right tackle is already done for the season. Their starting guard is obviously out for a couple weeks now. Now they have another injury to their other guard in this game. That offensive line is less and less healthy by the week. Justin Fields was under duress against the Colts. That forced him to run. Now, obviously, he's going to get some red zone carries that take away from Najee Harris. That's another topic. But Justin Fields at this point, he's looking much better in fantasy than he did in the first 2 weeks. He's not only throwing the ball actually pretty well, he's running the ball all of a sudden, especially at the goal line. Justin Fields is a good start in fantasy football at the quarterback position right now. Now, dropping out to our running backs right here. This is guys you need to claim right now. Kareem Hunt, Braylon Allen, Rico Dowdle, and Emmanuel Wilson. Kareem Hunt, I didn't expect this. I really didn't. Kareem Hunt comes out and dominates the carries in Kansas City. He was also the best back by far in this offense. Now, Samaje Perine comes up with the touchdown versus the Chargers. They used him at the goal line here. Kareem Hunt's going to continue to have more opportunities to get in the end zone. He actually looked really good today. And again, this is a lot of a result of being on a great offense that is not as great, obviously, with minimal receiving options. But Kareem Hunt looks like he might be providing some balance again and some stability in this offense as they continue to drop like flies in Kansas City. So with Kareem Hunt, that's the running back you want all of a sudden in Kansas City here. He looked good, he's getting the volume, and you can better believe that he's going to continue to get the volume in this offense. Braylon Allen, again, should not be on waivers. Similar to Bucky Irving, 45.6% rostered on ESPN. He should not be anywhere close to your waiver wire. This is a guy who is the best handcuff running back in the league, very, very arguably. And number 2, there's going to be an argument this week. He was better than Breece Hall. I saw fans in the Jets game, during that game, on Twitter saying, we need to bench Breece Hall for Braylon Allen. I saw that conversation take place. If anybody else saw it, let me know in the comments, because that conversation was legit happening during that Jets game. So with Braylon Allen, there's going to be a conversation, and in my opinion, Breece is going to be fine. He's going to still be the starter here, but at the very least, like, great handcuff running back for Breece Hall, and if someone's really that high on him, great trade piece for a potential starting running back or wide receiver, because again, there will be conversations this week, and some fantasy managers will be on board with Braylon Allen. So I'm just saying, Braylon Allen should not be anywhere near your waiver wire after this week. Rico Dowdle, I think that if you need a running back start every once in a while, I think he's a fine play. 43.4% rostered. He gets in the end zone last week, or on Thursday night, and I really don't think that this is sustainable for Rico Dowdle, to be honest with you. I'd much rather prefer Braylon Allen and Kareem Hunt, but I will say Rico Dowdle is pretty much not taking over, but he is leading the backfield in Dallas. They just don't run the ball that much. So unless he really gets a touchdown or starts to get more reception work, it's not going to be there a lot of times for Rico Dowdle. But that being said, based on volume, he could be a legitimate flex play in certain weeks, especially the more injuries we start to get. Emmanuel Wilson, 8.9% rostered. Last week it was great. This week it wasn't, but the reality is he basically split touches again with Josh Jacobs here. Josh Jacobs is a little bit of a problem right now, and Emmanuel Wilson is the main reason why. He's actually looking like he may be the handcuff running back, that the RB2 that they were hoping for in Green Bay from Marshawn Lloyd. So they clearly want to use 2 running backs in this offense. And there will be better weeks for Emmanuel Wilson. Not to say that you're going to start him over Josh Jacobs anytime soon, but again, handcuff running back here for Josh Jacobs. So let me know how your team turned out this week, and stay tuned for tomorrow's buy low videos before week 5.